Now, it's no secret that we're fans of the Sniper Elite franchise. Pretty much for that reason. But we caught up with Jason Kingsley, OBE and Head of Rebellion, to talk to us a little bit about why they chose Sniper Games.
When we first started the Sniper Elite series, we felt we didn't want to compete with a fantastic Call of Duty style of games, which are high production values. They are arguably skew slightly younger. They're a sort of stylized way of fighting war. You know, it's the kind of Hollywood hero steps out from a doorway and machine guns everybody, and everybody else is a lousy shot, and he isn't, and the story continues with you slaughtering thousands of people. We actually wanted to approach it with a bit of a slower perspective, and we always felt that sniping was a much loved part of multiplayer games and single player games, but kind of quite derided as well, because people argue that sniper camping is cheating and they get really annoyed at campers and that kind of stuff. But we felt actually there's a lot of people that wanted a game that specifically encouraged sniping. So we laughingly call it a sort of what's the right kind of phrase is a kind of thinking person's shooter. It's a bit of an oxymoron, you know. Obviously, shooters are of their own style, and not trying to glorify war, although the kill cam is extremely brutal and people are very entertained by it. The original idea behind the kill cam was to emphasize the devastating power of a single bullet, again in a way that isn't really handled in other games. But of course it makes for great YouTube clips, it makes for great video coverage. In some ways it trivializes the complexity of what we're doing with the Sniper Elite series, and yeah, it's good fun, it's gory, and it makes for great sort of PR and marketing, but that's not its intent. And I'll argue with people about it. It's not designed to glorify in gore, it's designed to make people think about what a bullet does to another human body. So he, in the very first one, he was born in Berlin to parents who were American and British. The story is slightly confused, the intel is not clear, but he is dual nationality, so he is actually German, British, but he was educated and brought up in North America, hence his accent. Right. So this is another part of the story which is quite complex, and a lot of people won't ever experience this, but if you look at some of the elements in the game, we've tried to draw that out a bit. So he is effectively a German sniper, but he's also a British sniper, but he's also an American, so he's kind of representative of a kind of more worldly type of human being that really post-dates World War II. He's more of a sort of a now kind of person who's more familiar with lots of different parts of the world, and therefore, and yet he's incredibly efficient at what he does. To begin with, we really wanted him to be a kind of fairly grey metaphor for a player character, so he wasn't that complex. We didn't tell much of a story. You know, to be a sniper, you've got to be very, very focused on what you do. Most people, I don't think, could be a sniper. We kind of wanted to reflect that. We didn't want him to be all sort of heroic and gung-ho. We sort of wanted him to be a little bit colder and to be a bit of a mirror for the dark side of the human experience. And therefore, we didn't really give the player much in the way of character background.
There's a dockyard down the coast from here. The Germans are moving something.
Any idea what that something might be?
There's a lot of security.
Most people these days play computer games, and therefore I think there is some obligation on us, especially when we're dealing with a real war, real situation, to be not necessarily 100% accurate, but to be appropriately accurate to history. We try to dig into some of the Wunderwaffe, the wonder weapons that the Nazi scientists were coming up with. And quite frankly, from the research, we had both sides. The British had wonder weapons as well. And most people don't know, there's a brilliant book called The Wizard Wars. And all of these scientists on both sides were considered to be sort of technological wizards. They were coming up with new ways of fighting war. And technology progressed at a lightning pace, because if you didn't have the technology, you'd lose the war. I find these kind of transitional periods in history fascinating, and I think we're going through one now. I think we're going through an information transformation at the moment, and there's all this combat, it talks about truth and fake news and all that kind of stuff going, alternative facts and all that kind of craziness, and it's going to be interesting in the next, arguably the next few months, but certainly the next few years, about how that settles out. So in some ways, there's a huge democratization of technology and sort of information that's happening at the moment, in a similar way to the way that in the Second World War, especially towards the end, there was a vast change in technology. Jet engines were coming in, guided missiles were coming in, radar, code breaking, supercomputers were being invented. And you look back at these and go, God, they're a bit kind of clunky, but they were so far removed from a decade before that it's actually quite astonishing. Absolutely fascinating area to read about. In hindsight, I imagine at the time it was absolutely terrifying to live through it, if people even knew that was happening.
My mission? Kill Schmidt. Kill all high-ranking officers. And get the hell out.
Well, we'd like to, I mean, Carl's obviously, Sniper Elite series is very important to Rebellion, so we're going to be doing a lot more with the Sniper Elite series. I don't know what yet, because we actually haven't decided. So, but yes, he can go into the Cold War. He can travel around the world. Carl can pass on his knowledge to somebody else who can take on that mantle of being the Sniper Elite. So yeah, we've got immediate plans. We're not announcing them yet, but we like the Second World War, but that's not a given. But there are other places in the world that'd be interesting to explore as well, and other time slots to explore. So yeah.